truck driver in Wyoming is sleeping on a memory foam mattress right now, inside a fully insulated sleeper cab with running water, a diesel heater, and a propane cooking setup. He built the whole thing for about $2,000 and a few weekends. Tonight he's paying exactly $0 for his accommodations while the driver parked next to him just dropped $140 at a motel room down the road. But he's not some outlier with too much free time. Thousands of long-haul drivers and owner-operators across the country are quietly doing the exact same thing because the math makes it impossible not to. A single night at a motel near a truck stop runs between $100 and $150. Multiply that by 15 nights a month and you're looking at $1,800 gone every 30 days. That's over $20,000 a year, just for a bed and a shower. An owner-operator running lean margins can't absorb that kind of hit, so they got creative, and the results are wild. We're talking drivers with running water, heated sleeping quarters, full cooking setups, and enough storage to live comfortably for weeks between stops. Some of these builds rival small studio apartments in functionality. The difference is, this one has 18 wheels and crosses state lines. These builds come down to 6 systems: insulation, heat, water, power, cooking, and storage. Get them right, and you've got a functional apartment on 18 wheels that crosses state lines. Miss even one, and you're back to burning cash at truck stops every night. Here's how drivers are building each one, starting with the step that new builders almost always skip: insulation. If you get this wrong, nothing else matters. You can install the best heater on the market, and it won't make a difference if all that warm air is leaking straight through sheet metal walls. The first thing experienced drivers do is strip out the factory interior panels of the sleeper compartment. Behind those panels, there's usually a thin layer of fiberglass insulation, sometimes even less. For a truck that's going to sit in a Minnesota rest area at -10 degrees, that's basically nothing. So drivers upgrade it with closed-cell spray foam. It bonds directly to the metal walls and ceiling, creating an airtight seal that blocks both heat transfer and moisture. A full job takes about 4 to 6 cans and costs $60 to $90 total for something that makes an enormous difference. On top of the spray foam, a lot of drivers add a layer of Reflectix, that silver bubble wrap looking material you see at hardware stores. It reflects radiant heat back into the space, runs about $20 a roll, and doubles as a privacy screen when cut to fit the window shapes. Some drivers hold it in place with Velcro strips so they can pull it off during the day and stick it back up at night. The final piece is a heavy thermal curtain between the cab and the sleeper. The cab area, with its massive windshield and thin doors, is basically a giant heat sink. Without a barrier, all the warm air in your sleeper gets pulled forward and disappears. A thick insulated curtain mounted on a tension rod turns the sleeper into its own separate climate zone. But insulation only holds heat in. It doesn't create it. And that's where things start getting creative. The most popular heating option by a wide margin is the Chinese diesel heater. Brands like Viver and HKLery flood online marketplaces for prices between $100 and $250. These units tap directly into the truck's diesel fuel tank, pull a tiny amount of fuel through a dedicated line, and generate serious heat. Enough output to keep a sleeper cab at 70 degrees when it's below 0 outside. They sip fuel at about 0.1 to 0.2 liters per hour and produce dry, clean heat. Installation takes some planning. Drivers mount the heater unit either under the bunk or on the exterior of the cab with a vent running inside. The exhaust goes out through a small port drilled in the floor, and the intake pulls fresh air from outside. The whole setup, heater, mounting hardware, fuel line, and ducting, costs under $300. Compare that to idling the truck engine all night to stay warm, which burns roughly a gallon of diesel per hour at $4 to $5 a gallon. These heaters pay for themselves inside of 2 weeks. But here's the part that catches new builders off guard. Diesel heaters fail. The glow plug burns out. The fuel line gets an air bubble. The combustion fan dies at 2 in the morning when it's 10 degrees outside and you're parked in a rest area with no cell service. Experienced truckers always carry a backup. A portable propane heater like the Mr. Buddy brand runs on small green propane canisters and puts out enough heat to take the edge off while you troubleshoot the main system. Propane produces moisture though, so it's a short-term fix, not an all-night solution. You crack a window, run it for 20 minutes, warm up the space, and shut it off. Between diesel as the primary and propane as the backup, most drivers can handle anything down to about -20 without breaking a sweat. Heat gets you through the night. But it's the water system that turns these sleeper cabs from survival camping into something that actually feels like a tiny home. The foundation of any cab water system is a 5 to 7 gallon food-grade plastic tank, the kind you'd find at any camping supply store. It sits on the floor behind the passenger seat or in a compartment under the bunk. A small 12-volt water pump, usually a SureFlow or similar marine-grade unit, pulls water from the tank and pushes it through flexible tubing to a faucet head mounted above a small basin. Some drivers install a stainless steel sink on a custom plywood shelf. Others use a collapsible silicone sink that folds flat when not in use. Underneath, a separate gray water container catches the runoff. When it's full, you dump it at a truck stop drain. The entire plumbing system, tank, pump, tubing, faucet, and gray water container cost between $80 and $140 depending on how fancy you get with the fixtures. But the part that surprises people is the shower setup. And yes, drivers actually shower in their trucks. A battery-powered pump sits inside a bucket or collapsible container of warm water and pushes it through a handheld shower head. You heat the water with an immersion heater plugged into your inverter, or fill the container at a truck stop hot water station. The shower itself happens inside a pop-up privacy tent, either inside the sleeper if space allows or right outside on the passenger side. A rubber floor mat catches the water and channels it for easy cleanup. Nobody's calling it a spa experience, but after a 12-hour day behind the wheel, a warm rinse in your own private setup beats waiting in line at a truck stop shower and paying $15 for the privilege. Do that math, and it's over $400 a month in shower fees alone, gone. Refilling the water tank is simpler than you'd think. Most truck stops have water spigots near the parking area. Drivers carry a dedicated food-grade hose, the same white ones RV owners use, and top off whenever they fuel up. Others keep a pair of clean 1-gallon jugs and refill from filtered water stations inside the truck stop store. Cost per fill is basically zero if you're buying fuel there anyway. Some drivers have even installed basic inline water filters, the same kind you'd use under a kitchen sink at home, to clean up questionable water sources they encounter on the road. A few take it further with small on-demand water heaters, the same 12-volt units used in boats, that heat water as it flows through the line. Hot water on tap without preheating anything. Those units run $80 to $120 but draw decent power, which only works if the electrical system can handle it. And that's the real bottleneck, because none of what we've talked about so far, the diesel heater, the water pump, the lights, the phone chargers, none of it works without reliable electricity. The factory electrical system in a truck sleeper wasn't built for any of this. The starting point for most upgrades is a secondary battery bank. Drivers install 1 or 2 deep-cycle AGM or lithium batteries, isolated from the truck's starter batteries using a battery isolator or a DC to DC charger. This means the sleeper systems can run all night without any risk of draining the battery you need to actually start the engine in the morning. On top of that, a growing number of drivers are mounting solar panels on the roof of the sleeper. A single 200-watt panel connected through a charge controller can produce enough energy during a day of driving or parking in sunlight to replenish what the sleeper systems used overnight. 2 panels bring even more headroom. The cost for a basic rooftop solar setup, including the panel, charge controller, wiring, and mounting hardware, runs between $300 and $500. The final piece is the inverter. A pure sine wave inverter converts 12-volt DC power from the batteries into standard 120-volt AC, the same kind that comes out of a wall outlet at home. That means drivers can plug in coffee makers, laptops, electric kettles, instant pots, and even small microwaves. A decent 1500-watt pure sine wave inverter costs between $150 and $250. Combined with the battery bank and solar, it creates a self-sustaining power system that can run indefinitely. If you're finding this breakdown useful, hit subscribe. We cover builds, gear, and the real economics of life on the road every week. Now here's something experienced drivers will tell you that the build guides usually leave out. You can have the best diesel heater, the best batteries, the best solar setup in the world. Systems fail, batteries die, heaters clog. And when that happens at 2 in the morning in a truck stop parking lot in northern Montana with wind chill pushing -30, you need something that works no matter what. Something that doesn't depend on fuel, electricity, or anything mechanical. That's why a lot of veteran over-the-road drivers keep a thermal bivy tucked behind the seat. Something like a TerraShell. It's a reflective emergency sleeping bag that bounces your own body heat back to you. It weighs almost nothing, packs down to the size of a water bottle, and needs zero power, zero fuel, zero maintenance. You just climb in, and your own body does the work. It sits in your cab for months doing nothing. And then one night, when your diesel heater throws an error code and it's 15 below outside, it becomes the smartest piece of gear you ever bought. A dead simple thermal barrier between you and a very bad night. If that sounds like something worth tossing in your rig, there's a link in the description below. But the gear that saves drivers money every single day isn't emergency equipment. It's a stove. Because eating truck stop food 3 meals a day will destroy both your wallet and your health faster than anything else on the road. The most popular cooking setup is a single burner propane stove. Brands like the Coleman Power Pack or Camp Chef put out enough heat to boil water, cook a full meal, and simmer a pot of chili without taking up much counter space. Drivers set them up on a small plywood or aluminum shelf built into the sleeper at counter height. Underneath the cooking surface, they mount a 12-volt cooler, essentially a camping fridge that runs off the battery system and keeps meats, vegetables, dairy, and drinks cold for days at a time. The non-negotiable piece with any propane or butane cooking inside a sleeper cab is ventilation. Carbon monoxide detectors, one mounted near sleeping level and another near the ceiling. Drivers crack a window and sometimes install a small 12-volt exhaust fan near the cooking area to pull fumes out. CO poisoning kills quietly in enclosed spaces, and a sleeper cab is about as enclosed as it gets. This is not optional. Drivers who skip open flames entirely go the fully electric route. An instant pot running off the inverter handles rice, soups, stews, and even bread using about 700 watts of power. Paired with a 12-volt electric kettle for coffee, tea, and instant oatmeal, it covers the vast majority of meals without any gas, flame, or ventilation concerns. The trade-off is power draw. 700 watts for 30 minutes pulls serious energy from the battery bank, so this approach works best for drivers who already invested in the upgraded solar and battery setup. Storage is the piece that separates casual truck campers from full-time cab dwellers, because the space itself is tiny. Most sleeper compartments run about 80 inches long by 40 inches wide, but the ceiling height is often 6 feet or more, which means there's a ton of usable airspace that most drivers waste completely. Cargo nets are the first trick, mounted to the ceiling with small hooks or eye bolts. A mesh net creates an overhead hammock for clothes, towels, sleeping bags, and jackets. Everything stays accessible but off the floor and out of the way. $15 and 20 minutes of installation. Below the bunk, drivers build sliding drawers using lightweight plywood and repurposed kitchen drawer slides from a hardware store. Pull-out compartments for tools, cookware, cleaning supplies, and personal gear. Some build a raised platform bed with the entire space underneath, dedicated to organized storage bins. On the walls, magnetic strips hold knives, tools, and small containers. Adhesive hooks handle hats, keys, and headphones. Every square inch gets a purpose. It's the same philosophy you see in yacht design or Japanese micro apartments, just applied to a Freightliner Cascadia. The before and after is what really gets people. You see the starting point, a bare metal sleeper compartment with a thin factory mattress, a couple of cubby holes, and exposed wiring. Then you see the finished product. Warm lighting from LED strips tucked behind trim pieces. A clean countertop with a sink and stove. Curtains on the windows. a thick mattress with real bedding. It doesn't look like a truck anymore. It looks like a very small, very efficiently designed studio apartment that happens to be bolted to a diesel engine. And here's where the full picture comes together. An owner-operator who lives out of their truck full-time can save between $30,000 and $50,000 a year in motel, restaurant, and shower costs. Over a 5-year driving career, that's potentially $250,000 kept in their pocket instead of handed to truck stop chains. But drivers who've done these builds will tell you the money is only part of it. There are entire YouTube channels, Facebook groups, and online forums where thousands of drivers share parts lists, wiring diagrams, and lessons learned from failed installations. Somebody asked about the best 12-volt cooler for a Kenworth T680 sleeper, and within an hour, there are 30 responses from people who've tested half a dozen models. They know which truck stops are friendly to overnight parking and which ones knock on your door at midnight. They know which rest areas have covered picnic spots for cooking when the weather turns bad, and which ones to avoid entirely. That knowledge gets passed around in group chats and forum threads like a secret handbook for the road. Talk to any trucker who's done a full sleeper build and you hear the same thing. They show it off the way a homeowner shows off a renovated kitchen. There's genuine pride in the craftsmanship, even when the craftsmanship involves zip ties and Velcro. Drivers aren't waiting for companies or truck manufacturers to give them better living conditions on the road. They're building those conditions themselves, one weekend project at a time. A $200 diesel heater here, a 5-gallon water system there, solar panels on the roof, and a thermal bivvy behind the seat for when everything else fails. Layer by layer, they're turning workspaces into homes. If you want to see the full builds and gear lists drivers are actually using, click the video on screen. We go deeper on the electrical setups and show you exactly how to wire a secondary battery bank without frying your truck's system.